Shoot, it is so hard not to overreact. I want to start with a couple of just simple things here. Generally speaking, especially with the four top 10 matchups, were you surprised at the lack of willingness or willingness to run the football? Where it seems like just that basic, simple element of playing football was so elusive in some of these big time matchups.
Yeah, well, game by game, it was different, I guess. With in the Clemson LSU game, they really went away from the run in key spots there. With Ohio State and Texas, I think they leaned on a little bit too much. Maybe you have these two five-star quarterbacks dueling here, Arch Manning versus Julian Sayin, and they didn't really stretch the field at all vertically. With all the hype with Arch Manning coming in, I thought they'd take a lot more vertical shots, and they just didn't. So they really kept it close to the vest in that one. The Alabama-Florida State game, I mean, Florida State committed to the run for sure. They were dominating the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. That was probably my biggest shock of the weekend. Not so much the run-pass breakdown, but just the physicality that, or lack thereof, for Alabama. They did not want to go hit at all, and they were catching players instead of sending, delivering the hits themselves. So just did not look like the Alabama that we're used to the last 10, 20 years. So that was the biggest shock to me, was Alabama not looking like a playoff team. You got to downgrade them big time after what we saw Saturday.
Brett, I thought that was super interesting because obviously I'm a huge Gus Malzahn fan, just full disclosure, always have been for no particular reason, except for I just kind of love the way all the window dressing and the creative ways he finds to get into these run plays and make your life a living nightmare, even when he doesn't necessarily have a great throwing quarterback. But I was, like you said, kind of stunned by the fact that Florida State looked like they were just manhandling Alabama. And I couldn't tell, I mean, having watched a lot of Florida State last year where that didn't happen ever, basically, I couldn't tell how much of that was just a mentality standpoint, how much of it was Florida State just got that much better over the offseason. How much credit do you give to Florida State versus blame you put on Alabama?
Well, there's a lot going on with this game. I think first with Florida State, they're one of these programs that relies heavily on the transfer portal. So it's almost like a transfer lottery every season. I mean, they hit big time in 2023. They missed big time last year at key spots, and they end up going 2-10. This year, it looks like they hit again, especially on the lines of scrimmage. Like I said, they brought in starters from other Power Four programs. These are proven guys, all conference caliber guys. So I think they got some proven linemen coming in. That was one. The coordinator hires were huge. You touched on Gus Malzahn, Tony White on defense, another guy you guys are familiar with. He helped turn around the Black Shirts last year, Syracuse before that. I think they had two great coordinators come to Tallahassee. And then just the mindset shift. I think that they were just attacking, rushing smash mouth football right up the gut, going right at this Alabama defense, this vaunted front seven, which everybody, including me, thought that it'd be one of the best in the country. I mean, you're looking at mock NFL draft picks all over the Alabama roster. They didn't show up at all. I think they had one tackle for loss, and it was in the fourth quarter. Just did not look like the Alabama we're used to. So I think mostly credit Florida State. And then I'm starting to question what's going on in Tuscaloosa, because that just did not look like the Alabama that we all signed up for. So I know it's one game. You don't want to overreact too much, but stuff like that isn't really an overreaction. I mean, we watched the team play for 60 minutes. They just didn't have the look or the physicality or the energy of the old Alabama team. So that's my reaction so far.
More surprised that only 17 handoffs between Price and Love, or the fact that of Clemson's 19 rushes, 8 of them were Klubnik, and 6 of those were scrambles.
Yeah, I mean, they had a five-star back, Gideon Davidson. I thought they'd get more involved. I know in the offseason they were getting their receivers involved in the run game with Adam Randall. So I wanted to see more of that. And last year they did that. They were a decent balance between pass and rush last year on their way to the ACC title. This year, yeah, I mean, we didn't see it. They really abandoned the run there late in the game. And it was still a close, I mean, obviously a close ball game. It was one score the whole way. Really, when that game changed, if you remember back, it was 10-3 LSU, or I'm sorry, 10-3 Clemson. Clemson was throwing towards the end zone. They had this long completion, which they went under review. I thought they were going to give them a touchdown. They actually called it incomplete. Then they missed the field goal. Then all the momentum goes towards LSU. It was touchdown, and LSU then pulls away. So that missed by an inch or two would have been a touchdown, would have made it 17-3 the other way. That changed the game. and Clemson couldn't get out of the rut after that. But yeah, I'm shocked by the play calling as well. I think others have noted that too, with the lack of a run game late in the game.
So, Brett, with the three big matchups, the Texas, Ohio State, LSU, Clemson, Miami, and Notre Dame, all of those ended up being one possession games. Do you think the results of those games were indicative of who you thought played better, or do you think the margins could have been a little bit more, or the actual results gone the other way on some of those?
Well, yeah, I think with these three games, they were all almost coin flip games. The Ohio State Texas game, you're an inch away. It was a goal line stand by Ohio State again. That right there is a 7-point swing. You got a tie game. There's just so many little plays in these games that could have made the difference or forced them into overtime. Notre Dame, Miami, same deal. That was a tie game in the last minute. LSU Clemson, we just touched on the incomplete pass that would have been a touchdown, flip it the other way, 7 points. So yeah, from these three games, and here's the thing, we're in this 12-team playoff era where in the old days, these are almost elimination games. I mean, in the BCS or before that, even in a 4-team playoff, these games might have been season defining, and you're talking about these three teams are almost eliminated. Now, I don't view them any different. The three losers of these games, I'm keeping them all in my top 10 this week in my poll. And I think they're all going to end up in that bracket. It hasn't changed my opinion on any three of them. In fact, I might have actually increased my perspective on Notre Dame. I think that C.J. Carr really shined late in that game. He grew up in the second half, and they started to trust him more, open up the offense more. So even with the loss in this new playoff era, I don't see them as an elimination for any three of those. The difference being Bama they might have some bigger problems over in that game. But the three top 10 matchups, I think they all held serve, and they're all top 10 teams to me.
It's interesting. I felt like who did you feel like you left the game knowing more about to make any proclamations? LSU in a win or Texas in the loss?
I felt we learned more about LSU. I think that coming in, we had a couple questions, mostly about the defense, because last year that struggled. That was their weakness. They had hired Blake Baker, the highest paid coordinator in college football history in 2024. You were looking for that second-year boost here in 2025. They also signed the number one transfer class in America. A lot of that was packing the defense with veteran players. So that was the big question. How's this defense going to look? Is it going to be an asset, a liability? Much less, it looks like a top 10 unit right now. They looked incredible. So I think I left a lot higher on LSU. We knew the offense would be fine. It was just a matter of how's this defense going to look, and they really impressed me. So I look at LSU now as a top 5 team. I know not to overreact, but going into Death Valley, a huge matchup. I like what we saw there. With Texas, I'm still a little bit unchanged. I think they shied away from the vertical pass game a little bit. And you got to credit Ohio State's defense and Matt Patricia as well. They're one of the best defenses in America. So I haven't really changed too much about Texas yet. I want to see them against some of these average teams and see them start to light up the scoreboard. Everyone else had the luxury of padding the stats against FCS and non-AQ. So you got to credit them for playing Ohio State. But, I leave more impressed with LSU than anything.
Brett, I know that I don't think we had talked about Bill Belichick when we first spoke to you here and the whole North Carolina thing, but I guess what do you just make of what happened last night, which just after the opening drive just looked complete disaster for North Carolina?
Yeah, well, I think everybody forgot that there was an actual opponent. Nobody talked about TCU the whole summer. I was really hyping them up. I had them in my top 25 in the preview magazine there. They certainly looked at last night. I had them as the one of the best bets for the win totals this year at 6.5. I loved it all season, all summer. I was talking about them. One of the keys was this first game. You got to get that toss-up game in Chapel Hill, and they went out and shined. I mean, this offense, Josh Hoover at the helm, these great receivers, it all clicked. But you're right. I mean, if you sat down and watched just the first drive and turned it off, you think, wow, UNC, they went right down the field. It was like 10 yards of play, quick touchdown. All the light blue fireworks are going off. It looked like a dream come true for Carolina. But then they settled in and really it fell apart. So I don't know. I think it's going to take more than 1 year really to see the real effect here in UNC. 70 new players. I mean, as you saw during the game, they're still figuring out their depth chart. They're figuring out their quarterback. Other spots are up for grabs. So I think it's going to take some time to really settle in. I'm more excited to see his first transfer haul and his first full-time recruiting class come 2026. That'll be a real indicator of not just his recruiting chops, but all the NIL investment that they've gotten, and really see how this program is going to go long-term. But this year, a total mystery, and probably like a 6-6, 7-5 type team.
So we've got to go to Lubbock. They've got to go to West Virginia. Uh, they got Arizona State at home. You've got the Holy War. I like Utah a ton. We talked about them last week with you. They go out and they hammer Utah. Dampier looks to be on the uptick. Should I change the way that I feel about Utah to the good, even though I liked them? No, after what I've seen from Baylor, Kansas State, even Kansas, for that matter, that schedule looks awful manageable now.
Absolutely. I think this is your biggest upgrade team of the week. You can argue LSU, probably Florida State, but outside of the two headliners, I think Utah really shifted the Big 12 landscape here. And I don't think it's an overreaction because they just lined up and overpowered a Power 4 opponent with UCLA. They ran right at them. I think they rolled up like 400 rushing yards. They outgained UCLA by 200, 300 yards. It was so dominant there in the late window. But it all came together. This is what you had hoped if you were a Utah fan. You wanted to see Devin Dampier, the new quarterback. You want to see Jason Beck, his new offense. It clicked and then some. So I think, Kansas State has been disappointing so far. Even Arizona State, I know it's one game and it's FCS opponent, but they weren't able to really pull away from Northern Arizona. That's a little bit of a concern. It was a 30-point spread, and I think it got close at the end. So if I had to really do a projection right now after one game, I think Utah's your Big 12 champion. So that shifts the whole playoff outlook right there. So yeah, they're my biggest upgrade of the week, along with Florida State, based on preseason versus where we are here 1 weekend. But I'm very impressed with Utah so far.
Brett, you mentioned the Arizona State, Northern Arizona game. There were a few kind of teams that we thought highly of or thought had some potential, whether it's Indiana against Old Dominion, A&M versus UTSA. You mentioned Kansas State and North Dakota as well, Michigan and New Mexico, that you had these power conference teams, these highly ranked teams that really didn't seem to get it going against what should have been inferior opponents. Do you chalk that up to things starting to spread out talent-wise a little bit in college football? Is it just there's so much turnover from year to year that these early games for some teams don't look great? Like, what do you chalk up to all those? I mean, those teams all end up winning, right? But certainly didn't look the way I think most people expected it to.
Yeah, and I think it's case by case. I don't know. I don't want to put too much emphasis on the FCS game. I think in two of those examples, you're looking at Michigan and Arizona State. They both have pretty big matchups coming up next week. I mean, they have some of the headliner games of week 2. I don't know if they were keeping it vanilla. I haven't reviewed their full games yet. Maybe they were keeping it close to the vest. But even then, you still want to see them overpower an FCS team. But Michigan's got Oklahoma in the college game day game this week. And then Arizona State is traveling down to Starkville to play Mississippi State. So I don't know if they were playing it a little vanilla there. I think the bigger problem is maybe Kansas State, because now we've seen them twice. In the opener, it was maybe some poor coaching and some situational spots in more of a toss-up game. But this one, you should really be taking care of North Dakota. I mean, I know it's coming off a travel week, but you shouldn't need a miracle in the final 30 seconds there. So there's some concerns over at Kansas State, I'd say. I'd say case by case, and let's see a second and third game with these teams, but not a good look in week 1 for them.
Who should we be more careful about overreacting to in week 1? Michigan or Indiana?
Ooh, that's a tough one here. I think Indiana, we need to give another benefit of the doubt. I know that right away when you see the helmet logo, you see the name, you think back to the last 100 years of college football. You think of them as being one of the teams at the bottom of the Big Ten. But last year was so dominant statistically, a top 10 team per my numbers. They dominated almost everyone they played outside of Ohio State and Notre Dame. Brought back a lot of that talent too. They had 3 All-Americans. All 3 are back on defense, and they patched it up with the transfer portal pretty effectively. So I want to see more of Indiana before we write them off to being the old Indiana. Michigan, I thought they would be able to handle New Mexico a bit more. You're talking about a team that lost their entire offense, their entire scheme, their quarterback, projected as the worst team in the Mountain West Conference this year at home at Michigan. I thought they'd really roll it up. I don't know. Maybe they're playing it vanilla. They got Oklahoma next week. So I just try not to overreact to a lot, but when a team impresses me like a Utah or a Florida State, it almost shifts the whole preseason projection. We sit here and talk 7 months about preseason, then all of a sudden one game drops and it's new data, and it's natural to overreact. But that's why I can't wait again for week 2. We're right back at it in a couple of days. I can't wait.
So, Brett, I want to talk Big Ten here a little bit. When you're sort of looking at the middle of the pack, Big Ten, Minnesota kind of has a little bit of a hard time with Buffalo. Wisconsin doesn't look great against Miami of Ohio. Michigan State, Western Michigan's maybe a little bit closer than you expect.
Certainly Iowa.
Iowa and Albany, which did not look good for a very long time for Iowa, and then even like a Washington, Colorado State, depending on what you think of Washington. Did this first week start to reorder the middle of the Big Ten for you at all?
Yes and no. I mean, those teams you mentioned, I had projected pretty low. Wisconsin, I had 12th in the Big Ten. 11th was Minnesota, 10th Iowa. So I had them all outside that top 10. Teams I was really excited to see were USC and Washington. They really impressed. USC rolled up 10 touchdowns. I know it was Missouri State, but they took care of their business. We'll leave it at that. Washington was in a little bit of a tight game there at halftime with Colorado State. But in the second half, Damon Williams really took over. He looks like a Kyler Murray type quarterback out there, a little smaller in stature, but really elusive, really fast. Jonah
Coleman is legit.
Back. Yeah, they look awesome. So I think that's a team no one's looking at, but look at Washington to be in that upper half or upper third of the conference going forward. Michigan, it remains to be seen. We're gonna know Saturday with Michigan. Who else we got? Illinois, again, they took care of business against an FCS team. I think we're going to learn more here with their game against Duke. And Nebraska, they won a one-score game, of course, coming in on a 10-35 skid. I don't need to tell you or the listeners all about that. That's most of the Scott Frost era right there. But got to a one-score game, took care of business. They handled it well. Hartzog with that pick at the end zone there at the end. Clutch finish for Nebraska. You get to 1-0 for the first time in a while. So they did what they're supposed to do, and it was a Power 4 team too at a neutral site. So credit there. So yeah, I mean, I want to see more games here before we do any sweeping conclusions. But decent start towards the top of the conference.
Yeah, 2 weeks in a row, I made the same mistake I made last week. We're almost 20 minutes in, and I liked them, and I'm just now asking you about Georgia. I feel like for a team that ran the ball 44 times, it looked pretty good. Probably better keep an eye on Georgia.
Yeah. Well, Damon and Ravi, I mean, if you really had to pick right now, your money's on the line, your reputation's on the line. If you have to pick an SEC winner right now, I mean, is it Georgia? I mean, they're very quietly in the shadows right now, but they just destroyed Marshall. They have the most talented roster in America in terms of 5 stars. Their defense has 11 5-stars itself. I mean, that's more than some conferences have. So, while Alabama was pushed around, while Texas couldn't, throw a pass past 10 yards downfield, maybe Georgia's the pick. I mean, maybe they're just sitting there quietly in their back. So probably Georgia, LSU are your top 2 teams right now in the SEC. So when there's no news about a team, that's probably good news. I mean, they took care of business. They won by 40. That's it for Georgia this week. I did like how Gunnar Stockton used his legs. I think he brought some mobility to that offense. That's a new element that maybe Carson Beck in the past didn't have. So a little mobility at quarterback can't hurt. I like Georgia. They're in my top 5 right now.
So, Brett, looking ahead to week number 2, obviously Michigan, Oklahoma is going to get all the headlines. There's obviously significantly fewer marquee matchups than there were in week 1. But what are some of the games that you're looking at that you think could be interesting?
Yeah, well, you got to start there with the headliner. I mean, this is 2 national blue blood programs going at it. And I like that it's getting the college game day treatment. You got a new quarterback with John Mateer at Oklahoma, new quarterback at Michigan with Bryce Underwood. I'm excited Saturday at noon for Baylor SMU, and this might go off the radar a little bit, but these are 2 teams that I included over in Pick 6 Plus as my win totals of the season. I had Baylor going over, I had SMU going under. A little bit of a Texas rivalry here. That's going to go a long way for the Pick 6 Plus subscribers. But Illinois Duke, I think we're going to learn a lot about Illinois there. The Cy-Hawk matchup with Iowa State, great defense every year. That might be your 10-9 game of the week, a 1-score game and low-scoring game. The headliner is Oklahoma, Michigan there. But I like Kansas, Missouri, too, an old rival, an old Big 12 rivalry. So that's what I'm looking at for this week. Just scrolling down the menu here real quick. Arizona State versus Mississippi State. We touched on that. And then my alma mater, Boston College, playing Michigan State. So we have a decent amount of Power 4 games this week. I can't wait to kick it off again. I wish we had them spread out again like last week, 5 nights of football, but we're getting back to the normal Saturday slate, which is great.
It seemed like Baylor offensively deserved a better outcome than
Robertson was kind of spinning a little bit.
Well, he threw for over 400, I think, and it was like between that and Indiana, it just seems like for as offensively good as those teams were, it felt like it should have generated more points.
Yeah, Baylor came up small in the red zone a bit. There were a couple of drives that came up empty. But more concerning for Baylor is they could not defend the run at all. Auburn was just lining up and powering the ball, and then their quarterback Jackson Arnold on keepers and design runs. I mean, third and medium, it was automatic they were going to get it for Auburn with Jackson Arnold. So I'm concerned about their defense there, but I still like them for the season. I think the number was 7.5 wins. I think they're going to contend for a Big 12 title up there, along with Arizona State and Texas Tech and Utah. They're in that pack. So we're going to learn a lot about both. I'm not sold on SMU this year. I think that they're going to take a big step back. We're going to learn a lot Saturday.
That's our guy, Brett Ciancia, Pick Six Previews. Make sure you check him out. Brett, appreciate the time as always.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Brett.